Chuck Rocha.
Netroots Nation, it's good to be back. Sisters and brothers, y'all are wrapping up one hell of a conference. I'm going to tell you. It would seem like just the other day, back in Pittsburgh, remember? Remember we had just elected Barack Obama? Yes, we can. Hope, change. We're going to start kicking ass and taking names. Then 2010 happened, and people were like, oh shit, what just happened? It's like people literally woke up in 2009 was like, Betty, you realize we elected a black man president? We need to vote in some of them white Republicans kind of equal shit out around here. And all of us have kind of been living through the repercussions of that as we've moved forward. Now, for all of you who have never seen me speak before and are sitting there with your jaw dropped, yeah, I am representing the Mexican Redneck Caucus at Netroots Nation, and I'm happy to do that. Special shout out to the Texas delegation, all my homies back in the raza. Most of you know I started my career at 19. I hired into a factory where my daddy worked, 14 of my cousins and uncles, and I built tires for a living. I joined this thing called the union, became a union steward. Then I became an officer of my local union when I was 22. Went on to become the national political director for one of the major unions in North America. I have had a great life representing working men and women. And I can honestly tell you, sisters and brother, I have probably never been more disgusted with our public policy and politicians at any point in my life, to where I left the union and have started one of the only minority-owned political consulting firms in D.C. because it's time to take this country back. I have never seen the other side come after us with such vengeance. I was kind of used to it with the unions. You know, they never really liked us having a 40-hour work week, and I'm having to pay time and a half after 8 hours. They never really liked having collective bargaining and the boss man actually having to sit at the same table as a bunch of workers. But now it's expanded beyond that. Now it's women. Now we're talking about literally vaginal probes in Virginia, and when a person becomes a person in Mississippi, what the hell? One battle after another battle. The young people in this country, you go into debt, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, or $100,000 if you're my girlfriend because you want to go to school the rest of your life, or you don't have to pay your interest, or they wait for you to see if a bill's going to pass that's going to double your interest. Then you get out of school and there's no jobs. What happened to the American dream and people, no matter what neighborhood you grew up in, no matter what the color of your skin is, having the same opportunity as somebody like maybe Mitt Romney? What happened to that philosophy? Because they want to divide and conquer. And the kicker here is, when you vote against women, when you vote against Latinos, when you vote against young people, when you vote against elderly, what's the one thing these politicians have left to do? Well, since we voted against all these people, we better make damn sure they can't vote. Let's make sure that there's a voter ID bill that disenfranchises all of those types of people. In my home state of Texas, they've said that voter fraud was so rampant and out of control, we need a voter ID bill. Even though poor Latinos down in the valley may have to drive 70 miles to go get an ID, they said it's rampant. We got to have voter ID laws. There's fraud everywhere. In the last 10 years, 38 people in the state of Texas had documentation of some kind of fraud from the Attorney General's office. Over that same 10-year period, 61 people claimed they saw Bigfoot. More people have seen Bigfoot than created voter fraud. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. That's exactly why we're here today. Politicians and policymakers need to hear from us. The reason these people are after us is they, one, don't look like us. Now, it's hard to look like me and talk like me, but they don't look like anybody in here. They don't sound like us, and they haven't lived their real stories. Mitt Romney is running around America in a flannel shirt, going into a steel mill or into an auto plant going, I know what it's like to be a worker. I've hired and fired all kind of them. And look, I got on a flannel shirt. Well, let me tell you about Mitt Romney. He is all flannel shirt and no fucking calluses. That's what Mitt Romney is. Woo. Watch my language. I apologize for that bad language. Sometimes I get worked up. It's our job to kind of see the new America. Literally, people voted in the black man. And then they were like, oh, no, what happened? My life didn't get better in these 18 months. Let's vote for the Republicans. Now the Republicans are all in office. And now they've come after women, youth. I'm being redundant, but that's the pattern. America has changed. It's changed from the point of where old white men in wigs used to make laws to where you would have somebody like my uncle in that factory who would tell me a story about how he had to give his white friend the nickel at the drugstore so he could go buy his ice cream because the drugstore owner wouldn't let him into that drugstore to buy ice cream. My uncle worked in that mill with me every day. And now that mill, 3 years ago, where 1,000 men and women worked, is no longer there. And that tire production is overseas. And that story's told all over America. And all I want to leave with you today is this, is who's going to speak for Uncle Monty? Who's going to speak for the single mother like my mother who had 2 children, was divorced, and wasn't old enough to get in a nightclub? Who's going to speak for the dreamer who came here for no fault of their own and have went to school and are a part of the fabric of America who certain politicians want to punish? Who's speaking for that dreamer? And who is speaking for that teacher, that firefighter, and that policeman who go to work every day to protect us, to school our children, and to make America a better place? We speak for them, ladies and gentlemen. We are the new movement. We are the new America. And until our politicians, policymakers, and I'll go one step further, and our political consultants look like each and every one of us in this room, it's not going to change. We've got to start with change. We can make change happen. And I can stay up here for 30 minutes bitching about how bad these people are messed up, but they only gave me 5 minutes. I want y'all to go home and kick some ass and take some names, and we will see change. One caveat, my new media people would kick my ass if I didn't tell you to follow me at Chuck Rocha on the Twitter thing.